In a small village nestled between rugged mountains lived a young girl named Aria. She was no ordinary girl. Her heart carried a dream heavier than the stones that lined the village paths. Aria wanted to be a doctor, not just for herself, but to save lives in a place where sickness often stole hope. Her mother, Lila, had died of a fever when Aria was 10, and the nearest doctor was a 3-day journey away. That loss carved a purpose into Aria's soul, but dreams in a poor village were like seeds in rocky soil. Aria's father, a farmer with hands rough as tree bark, believed in hard work, but not in dreams. "The world doesn't bend for wishes," he'd say, urging her to marry young and tend the fields. The village school had no books on medicine, and the teacher, an old man with failing eyes, could only teach basic arithmetic and reading. Yet Aria clung to her dream like a climber gripping a cliff's edge. Every night, after chores, she'd sneak to the abandoned mill where she'd hidden a tattered biology book she'd found in a trader's cart. Its pages were yellowed, some torn, but to Aria, it was a treasure. Under the flicker of a stolen candle, she studied, memorizing terms like circulatory system and antibiotics while the world slept. Her eyes burned from exhaustion, but giving up was a betrayal of her mother's memory. The village mocked her. "A girl doctor? You'll sooner see pigs fly," they'd laugh. Her best friend Mira urged her to be practical. "Dreams don't feed you," she said softly. Even Aria's brother Teo, who loved her fiercely, worried. "What if you fail?" he asked one evening, his voice heavy with fear for her. "Then I'll try again," Aria replied, her voice steady as stone. At 16, Aria heard of a scholarship for a medical school in the city, a chance for poor students to study for free. The catch? She had to pass an entrance exam in 3 months, and the exam was in a city she'd never seen, covering subjects she'd never studied formally. Her father forbade her from going. "You'll shame us," he said, his voice like thunder. But Aria's heart was a wildfire. She worked in secret, trading vegetables for old textbooks from a traveling merchant. She studied under the stars, her breath visible in the cold night air. She taught herself algebra from scraps of paper and learned chemistry from a retired nurse who visited the village once. Her hands trembled as she wrote practice answers, but her resolve never wavered. The day of the exam, Aria snuck out before dawn, carrying a small bag with her book and a piece of bread. She walked for 2 days, hitching rides on carts when she could, her feet blistered and her stomach hollow. When she reached the city, it was a maze of noise and towering buildings. She felt like a sparrow in a storm. The exam hall was filled with students who'd had tutors and proper schools. Aria's pencil shook as she faced questions she'd only half prepared for. Her mind screamed that she wasn't enough. But then, she saw her mother's face in her memory, pale but smiling, and whispered, "I won't give up." Weeks later, a letter arrived. Aria had failed the exam by a narrow margin. The village's laughter echoed louder now. Her father's silence was heavier than ever. Teo held her as she cried, the first time she'd let herself break. But even as tears fell, Aria's heart refused to surrender. "I'll try again next year," she said, wiping her face. Teo looked at her, eyes wide. "You're unstoppable," he whispered. Aria worked harder. She found a job cleaning the merchant's house, earning coins to buy more books. She studied until her vision blurred, teaching herself from mistakes she'd made on the first exam. The nurse, moved by her grit, sent letters to a city professor, pleading for study materials. Slowly, Aria's knowledge grew. A bridge built, one stone at a time. The next year she took the exam again. This time, her hand was steady. When the results came, the village fell silent. Aria had passed, not just passed, but topped the list. The scholarship was hers. On the day she left for the city, her father stood at the gate, his eyes wet. "I was wrong," he said, handing her a small pouch of coins. "You bent the world." Teo hugged her tight, whispering, "Save them all, Aria." Years later, Dr. Aria returned to her village, now with a clinic of her own. She treated fevers, stitched wounds, and brought hope where it had been scarce. The villagers who once mocked her now called her a miracle. But Aria knew the truth. Miracles weren't magic. They were born from never giving up, even when the world seemed to say, "You can't." And every night as she closed the clinic, she'd touch the old biology book on her shelf and whisper, "For you, Mama."